Hey everybody, for this week's Golden Nugget, we're going to take a look at some really cool data entry tips in Excel. What we've got here first is a little spreadsheet where we're going to be putting maybe some amounts of some sales or something like that in. And you'll see here that it goes all the way from January to December. Well, right now it just turned to June. So I really only want to put the numbers from January to May. And then I'm going to put zeros in the rest of them. So what I did is I selected all the cells that I want to type into. Now, I can go to one of them and I can go 100. Normally, you just press enter and it takes you down a cell. No big deal. I'm going to go here and I'm going to put some numbers in. Watch what happens when I press enter now. It goes up to the top of the next column. So I can continue going here if I want. Now there's a few keys that I want to tell you about. Enter goes down, Shift Enter goes up, Tab goes to the right, and Shift Tab goes back. Now why wouldn't I just use my arrow keys? Well, because then it'll think that I want to go outside of here. As soon as I use an arrow key, I don't have my stuff selected anymore. So I could select tab, here's 600. Maybe I'm going to do all of Faith's information first. Tab. I already did this, so tab, and so on. So you can use tab to go to the right, Shift Tab to go to the left, Enter to go down, and Shift Enter to go back up. As long as you don't use your arrow keys or click with the mouse, that stuff stays selected. So that's a really cool data entry tip. Now what we want to do here is we'd like to just put in a 0. Now I know you can put a 0 and you can drag it and copy autofill and all that, but notice what I've done. I've selected all the cells where I want to see that 0. And I'm going to go 0. Now if I just press enter, that doesn't really do too much. I'm going to go Shift Enter to go up. I'm going to go 0, and then I'm going to go Control Enter. So select your cells, then go to any of the cells, type, and then Control Enter. That'll fill all of the cells in. So if it was just these guys, I don't think I would have done that, but because it was a bigger range, that's a great thing to do. So next, we're going to take a look at entering some data in. So here we've got first name and last name and some information underneath it. I bet everybody knows about double clicking between C and D, for example, to make their columns bigger or smaller, depending. The double click will ensure that it's as big as it needs to be or as small as it needs to be for the biggest thing in there. I can also click and drag to make my column bigger. What I'm going to do here with first name is I've double clicked on it and it has made it quite big. Now I don't really need it that big because the biggest thing in there is maybe one of these people's names down here. So I manually sized it to fit the biggest name in there. And then with this, of course it doesn't work, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on wrap text and then it wraps within that cell. Now later, if I go down here and put a great big first name in and I expand it, it says, I don't need to wrap anymore. I'm not going to wrap. So if there was a big name in here and I went up and I made it bigger manually or double clicked on it, it decides if it should wrap or not. So right now it's absolutely fine. What about last name? I want first name and last name to look the same. But as you can see here, this great big hyphenated name is the biggest thing in there. So I can't really do the same like I did with the other one. If I click on wrap text, okay, it wraps, but look what it's doing here. So if I drag it a little bit to the right, it says last name doesn't need to be wrapped anymore. So what am I supposed to do? Here's what you do. Is you can go up in your formula bar here and click after, I usually just get rid of that space, click after the first word So I'm editing it right now. I could have double clicked in my cell as well to do in cell editing. I'm going to go Alt Enter. Now, Alt Enter is like when you're typing in a Word document or an email and you say, "Dear Mr. Smith, enter." And enter always sends you down to the next line. Well, enter here doesn't send you down to the next line, but Alt Enter does. So not the next row, but the next line within that cell. So now I'm going to press enter and they look the same. So then let's do some testing. If we went here to first name and we typed a really long name, such as Mary Ellen Louise, really long first name, enter, and then we go to the last name column and we can put another long name here. Let's say that it's Wilkinson, another hyphenated name, Wilkinson Patterson. That's a long name. What we can do with that now, watch the difference. Both of them need to be bigger. If I go up here to column A and double click, yay, it's big. But look what happens to first name. It says, I don't need to wrap anymore. I'm not going to. Look what happens when we make this one bigger. It remains wrapped because we did that Alt Enter. In fact, if I made B this big, there's the word's last name can definitely fit in there. It doesn't care. It says, you wanted me to always have this wrapped. I'm always going to have it wrapped. And the double clicking on that one works nicely as well. So what I would probably do in this case is I would go up. I'll do the double click in the cell this time. I always get rid of that space. Alt Enter and then enter. So now it doesn't matter how big I make first name or last name. They'll always be wrapped. And then if you wanted to, you could use the paintbrush to do it to these other ones. Not sure if we would need to wrap those ones, but certainly for the centering and for the bolding, we could click on the paintbrush and then we could go over here. And these ones will have the wrap on them because the first one had the wrap. The second one, if you put Alt Enter in, it doesn't really matter if wrap text is on or not. These ones you might decide you want them a little bit higher. So I'm going to select them all just to keep them consistent. And then I've got these three buttons. The top align, watch my month names, the middle align, and then the bottom align. I think that's the one it was on to begin with. So some people like it along the top if there's two lines within a row, and then for some of them, and then only one line per row for the others. They just like the tops of them to be lined up. It's entirely up to you what you want to do. So I hope that was a fun tip for you. Try it out the next time you have some data to enter. See you next time.